today's lesson, we are going to be looking at converting between different US customary units of measurement, and we're going to be using what's called conversion factor. So I'll be putting it into rate form. So our first problem that we're going to look at is this one. It says during a 24-hour period of April 1921, a record 75 and 8/10 inches of snow fell in Silver Lake, Colorado. If 6.5 feet of snow were to fall in a later 24-hour period, would the 1921 record be broken? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this as a conversion factor. So I'm going to write 12 inches equals 1 foot. Okay, so this is my conversion factor. And so when I do my conversion factor, that the unit of measurement that I'm going to end up with is my measurement that's on the top. So I want to end up with inches. I want to make this in inches. And so what I'm going to do is I want to know how many feet, or I'm looking for how many inches this equals. So I'm going to do 6.5 feet. And so when I do that and I get 6.5 feet, so there's my equivalent ratio that I'm going to create. Here's my rate or my conversion factor. And when I do this, I am going to take 12 and I'm going to multiply it by 6.5. And then I would take 1 and I would multiply that by 6.5. And when I do that, 12 multiplied by 6.5 is going to be 78. And so I have 78 inches is going to be my new amount of snowfall. And 78 inches is going to be greater than 75 and 8/10 of an inch. So the record would be broken. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and move down to our look back. How many feet of snow would need to fall in Silver Lake, Colorado to break the 1921-24 hour snowfall record? And so when we look at this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I am going to say, okay, so 1921 record be 75.8 inches of snow. And I need to see how many feet would fall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to divide this by 12 inches. And when I divide this by 12 inches, that's going to convert it into how many feet I need. And so when I do 65.8 inches and I divide that by 12, I end up with 6.32 feet. And so I need to have it going to be greater. So how many feet of snow would I need? I would need about 6.4 feet of snow in order to break that record. All right, let's go ahead and move into our visual learning. And so you're going to want to make sure that you make note of this unit of measurement table today as you go throughout and are working on your independent practice, because it gives you your conversions or your conversion factors for everything. So right here it says a conversion factor is a rate that compares equivalent measures. So we are working on finding equivalent units of measurement by converting them from one form to another. So our problem that we're going to take a look at says the sidewalk in front of a store is 4.5 feet wide. The city regulations require the width of a sidewalk to be a maximum of 66 inches. Does the sidewalk meet the city regulations? Okay, so I am going to convert 4.5 feet. So I'm going to convert 4.5 feet into inches. So I want to know 4.5 feet is equal to how many inches to see if I have that enough. So what I'm going to do in order to find that is I'm going to take 4.5 feet and I'm going to multiply that by 12. So I'm going to take 4.5 feet and I'm going to multiply that by 12. And when I multiply 4.5 feet by 12, I end up with, let me get 54 inches. And so my answer is going to be 54 inches. So no, it does not meet the requirements. They need 12 more inches or 1 more foot is needed. Okay. So let's take a look at this dimensional analysis. This is something that you are going to just need to be aware of in terms of being able to read it and determine whether or not it's going to, somebody's using it correctly. But ultimately, really, you're going to be either multiplying or dividing by units of measurement to help you find the different, or feet to inches, or gallons to cups, gallons to quarts. Okay. So if we take a look at the dimensional analysis to convert. So here's what I did. I took 4.5 feet and I times that by 12 inches over 1 foot. So notice I want inches. So inches is going to be the measurement that I put on top of the rate. When I do that, when I multiply 4.5 feet times 1 foot, these two units of measurement go away. So I'm only left with 12 inches. So that's why it says divide out the common units. So I'm only left with 4.5 times 12 inches, which equals 54, which is essentially what I did. I just did not show you this step. So as we go forward and see, we will, I'll add that in as we do our comparisons. So requires the maximum of 66 inches. It's interesting. It says the city regulations require the width of the sidewalk to be maximum 66 inches. Does the sidewalk meet the city regulations? Well, if it's 54 inches, it does not meet city regulations. And so 66 inches, how wide is the maximum sidewalk width? To find this, what we need to do is I'm going to take 66 inches, okay? And now my conversion factor is going to change. So it's going to look a little bit different. So I'm going to do 66 inches. And because I want that to be in feet, I'm going to put my feet, my 1 foot on top, and then the 12 inches goes on the bottom. And so what this will rewrite itself as is 66 divided by 12, and then that will tell me how many feet I have. So again, I don't necessarily, when I do my conversion, use this conversion factor, but it's something that you just need to be aware of moving forward within this topic. The fluency piece really is going to be, can you multiply or divide by your correct conversion factor? So when I do 66 divided by 12, I end up with 5.5 feet. And so that is going to be the maximum sidewalk width is 5.5 feet. All right. So moving into your guided practice, or let's take a look at another example. So the alpine pika is a small mammal found in the rabbit family. An alpine pika at a local zoo weighs 10 ounces. How much does it weigh in pounds? So here's the conversion rate. It's 16 ounces equals 1 pound. So if I do the conversion factor, notice that pound is on top, ounces are in the bottom. They rewrite it as 10/16 of a pound, and then they converted it into decimals. How I would find this without using rate or without using that, but just using multiplication and division, what I would do is if I'm going into ounces, I'm going to take 10 and I'm going to divide that by 16. And when I divide that by 16, that's going to be my conversion rate. It'll tell me how many pounds that's going to equal. And so 10 divided by 16 is going to be 0.625 pounds. All right, so let's move into your guided practice. It says, what is a conversion factor that relates miles to yards? So what conversion factors can I use that relates miles to yards? So if you go back and you look at your table on the previous page, you're looking for that rate. So I have 1 mile. So I'm just going to write my conversion rate. So 1 mile equals 1,760 yards. That's the conversion rate. The conversion factor that they want us to write it as, they want us to write it as 1 mile over 1,760 yards, or 1,760 yards over 1 mile. Okay, so this is the conversion rate here. The conversion factor is where I write it in rate language. All right, number 2, it says Jenna used the conversion factor 1 ton to equals 2,000 pounds to convert 50 tons to pound. Did she use the correct conversion factor? Explain. And so when I set this problem up, so I'm going to set it up to where I have 50 tons. So I want 50 T and I want to get to pounds. So in order to get to pounds, okay, so 50 tons, I want to know how many pounds that equals. So I'm going to take 50 and I'm going to divide according to Jenna's, right? If I'm doing 50 tons to how many pounds, I'm not going to divide, I'm going to multiply by 2,000 pounds. So the conversion factor for the multiplication, okay, the conversion factor for the multiplication would look like this: 2,000 pounds for 1 ton. Look at what Jenna used. Jenna used 50 tons times 1 T over 2,000 pounds. She did not use the correct conversion factor. So when I am dividing the value or the smaller unit of measurement, so here pounds is smaller than tons, is going to be on the bottom. When I'm multiplying, the smaller unit of measurement is going to be on top. So here pounds is on top. So she did not use the correct conversion factor. She needed to use this conversion factor because she is multiplying 50 times 2,000. Okay. All right. Number 3. Sam is tripling a recipe for organic cleaning solution. The new recipe calls for 15 teaspoons of orange oil. To find how many tablespoons of Sam converted this way. What error did Sam make? So I just got done saying that if we are going, so I'm going from teaspoons to tablespoons. Guys, before we jump in and really look at this error, when you are going from a smaller unit of measurement, okay, so I'm going from a smaller unit to larger unit. So in this case, if I'm going from teaspoons to tablespoons, I'm going to divide. So if I'm going from inches to feet, I'm going to divide. If I'm going to pounds to tons, I'm going to divide. If I'm going from quarts to gallons, I'm going to divide. If I'm going from a larger unit, and you may want to write this down, this may help you, larger unit to smaller unit, you multiply. So if I'm going from feet to inches, I multiply. If I'm going from yards to feet, I multiply. Miles, miles to inches, I would multiply. Okay, so he's going from teaspoons to tablespoons. So he's got 15 teaspoons, and I want to know how many tablespoons that's equal to. So when I look at how many tablespoons that's equal to, I'm going from a smaller unit of measurement to a larger unit of measurement. So I'm going to multiply. And we talked about that when I multiply, I need to make sure that I flip-flop these, okay? So when I'm multiplying, the error that he made is he used the wrong conversion factor. He should have used 1 tablespoon is equal to 3 teaspoons. That's what he should have used for his error, okay? And when he did that, I end up with 5 tablespoons because I'm dividing 15 by 3. So 15 by 3, I get 5 tablespoons. Here's what my expectations are for your work is really I just want to know, can you use the conversion rate to help you solve these problems? So can you tell me how many pints are in 5 pints equals how many cups, 2.5 gallons equals how many quarts, 2,640 yards equals how many miles, using the conversion tables, conversion rates to find your answers. So you're either going to be multiplying or dividing. So you're going to multiply if you're going from a larger unit to a smaller unit, and you're dividing if you're going from a smaller unit to a larger unit. The problems that I'd like for you to do today are 4, 5, and 6. So you're doing all 3 on the independent practice. And on your math practices and problem solving, I'd like for you to complete the following problems. I'd like for you to complete 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. So you're going to do 13 problems working on converting US customary units of measurement.